Five, four, three. All right, so this should be rolling now. This is drawing and talking with Nathaniel Sullivan. I have as my guest Patrick Vaughn, internet famous Patrick Vaughn. So I'm sorry you can't see him. I haven't worked that out with this method of recording yet, but I'll get around to it. So anyway, first topic, or what we're going to talk about in this cast, was specifically diversity in comics, or lack of diversity in comics. And I guess this has come up. I guess it's a recurring issue. It's comes up in various formats, various topics. So, Patrick, you have anything you want to say about that initially?
Nathan, it's my stance on it. I'm still kind of on the fence because as much as I am for diversity in comics, I am of the mind of not wanting the powers that be at DC, at Marvel, at wherever to cave into, I guess, outrage from the public. I am still of the mind that if you want to include diversity in comics, so be it. I am not one to discourage that, but it should be something that isn't forced. It should be something that everyone is in genuine agreement to do. And as I'm not sure if you probably found out as of recent, the new Amazing Spider-Man, I guess the new leading character for the next movie that's going to be made, he will be a Caucasian male. Needless to say, many internet commenters are losing their minds about that sort of thing as to why it can't be based on the Ultimate Spider-Man. Lead character, was it Miles Morales?
Right. I remember. I saw that. Yeah, I saw
that. Okay. Because you have to remember, I am someone who, my Marvel Comics knowledge is next to zilch. The only thing that I do know about for us, Miles Morales, spoiler warning for any of our 20 or so listeners that are tuning in right now, at some points, Peter Parker had met Miles Morales on some type of rooftop or some sort. I'm pretty sure someone will correct me on this. Long story short, he was killed or something to that effect. And long story short, Miles Morales donned the costume, and he is now the Ultimate Spider-Man, not the Amazing. But anyway, I always feel that diversity in comics, if you want to include a lead black male character or a lead black female character or what have you, to not have them be defined by their race.
Yeah.
You don't want to particularly have them marginalized by such.
Yeah.
That's just about it. But do you have any? Let me hear your take on it.
One thing I find confusing about I guess the diversity thing in comics, I guess one thing I'm kind of surprised by is that, from what I can see, it's kind of happened, but it hasn't happened in the way I would have expected, or I think a lot of people would have expected. You've got manga. You've got Japanese comics that are huge, and the characters are not recognizably Caucasian. If I walk into a bookstore, there's manga all over the place. So so for one thing, I'm kind of fascinated by. I think there's diversity in comic books now in that one, in a way that I would not have expected, and I think in a way that I'm not sure why that doesn't get more attention or doesn't get more kind of credit. I guess what I'd say about diversity in comics, in including more people of color, right, in mainstream comic books, is I guess I would take the fact that you're not doing it, I think should be kind of a concern. I suspect comic books would be in better shape if there were a lot of pressure to do that. If there were a lot of pressure, I think there would be a lot of readers, there would be a lot of interest, there would be a lot of attention in the comic books. And the fact that there's not a lot of that I think it's kind of. I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of troublesome. I mean, I would find that troubling if I were, um, if I were one of the big companies or something like that. I mean, I would worry. I mean, why isn't there more? If there, I guess my point is, I guess the lack of diversity I see as kind of a symptom of a lack of attention. I mean, I think it would be more controversial and there would probably be more diversity if comic books were getting more attention.
Well, that's just sort of the thing. It's almost as if it's a double-edged sword. Either you're damned if you don't become holistic and have that inclusivity in having people of color in comics. And then on the other side, if you do, you're going to have this mob coming at you like, oh, there's no heart into this. You just did this to, meet to appease all these social justice, whatever you want to call them. There's no heart to it.
Yeah, but if you
why change what isn't broken? Thor was this, hulking, bulging white guy with the hammer that probably weighs more, than 100 times my car or whatnot. Why does it have to be a woman now? And you have all of these people coming in just spewing their vitriol on Twitter, on Facebook, all over on social media. And it seems to be, that's just this outrage culture that's going on right now. When any type of change happens in the world of comics, from a standpoint of diversity, I think it's more so, and I don't want to sound cynical, but it seems like people just want to rage about it more so than they do of just like wanting to consume and enjoy the content itself. And I mean, let's be honest here. What's old is new again. It's not as though comics have never, ever had any diversity, whatever. I mean, I would say a prime example is with Suicide Squad, Amanda Palmer. I mean, you have this tough as nails woman who is African American, who is, overweight, not the most eye attracting character to some adolescent boy who is reading all these comics with these bulging guys, the power fantasy, male adolescent power fantasy, and then you have the women with, their clothes barely hanging off. So it's not to say that characters like that don't exist. I mean, it is far and few in between. But I feel that eventually we will get to a point that the more the nerd culture demands change and diversity in comics, the sooner we'll get it. Hopefully, it'll be to a genuine benefit from the content creators themselves. So yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I guess where I would be if I'm sympathetic to the people who don't want to change things, I guess I would say in fairness to them. I mean, one comment I've heard was something like, "Look, I don't want Johnny Storm to be a black guy, but I totally want Luke Cage. I totally don't want Luke Cage to be a white guy either. Right? I mean, one thing I hear from kind of the hardcore fan nerds, whatever, the people who grew up with these things is, I mean, they want Thor to always be Thor. They don't want Thor to ever change. And they want Black Panther to never change, and they want Cyborg to never change. They want the characters who are people of color, like Blade, Luke Cage, Black Panther, right? They grew up with those characters. They genuinely like, right? They're genuinely fond of those characters. They don't want those characters to change either. I mean, so I guess one thing I guess I'm sympathetic to them on that point. I guess another thing I see with comics is that I think a lot of it's just when you get people into these things. I mean, the people who, from what I've seen of most comic book fans, if they grew up with characters of color, right? Again, Black Panther, Cyborg, Falcon, right? I can think of all these characters. I mean, they genuinely like them. I mean, they
Night Thrasher.
Yeah, but, well, perhaps it might be a bit of a stretch, but I mean, they genuinely like these characters, right? So I wonder if part of it's just kind of a generational problem. Like you haven't gotten these people as kids, and if you'd gotten them as kids, that might have really helped.
Oh, it's definitely a generational thing,
Yeah, yeah.
and I mean, as of now, it seems that it's. I mean, it's silly to the point where it's almost scary in how you have people losing their mind with imaginary characters, imaginary stories.
Yeah, but that's a fascinating
And
that's a fascinating aspect of fandom, right? I mean, the people who I care about this so much that I kind of own it. I care about this so much that I get to make decisions about it now. And that's kind of
and that's just it with social media. It seems that the more you snowball your outrage and gather troops behind you to rally up again, with you, it seems that it's possible now to have your content creators, have your writers and your comic artists, bulk under pressure.
really, because I mean, are you gonna stop? Are you gonna stop buying? If people stop buying Thor?
Well,
Not that I expect you to
well,
know or have the sales figures.
that's where that's the end goal there. People will rage until their throat is hoarse, but at the end of the day, the money decides.
Yeah, and
Money,
then yeah,
when
and
it
if, you,
makes
and if you're
sense.
getting all this hype, right? I mean, if you generating all this outrage with female Thor, I mean, I don't
Sure.
see how that's really
I
hurting
mean,
you.
I mean, not to as an aside, or unrelated to this, when Far Cry 4 came out, gamers, a select subset of the vocal minority, came out and raged on about how the lead antagonist, how had his hand over what was seemingly some Himalayan, and they cried racism, racist, and this that, and it got to a point where Ubisoft, they went ahead and changed the cover
Oh,
because
really?
of
Oh.
this vocal minority outrage thing. With the Killing Joke, the recent controversy that happened with that, with the new, it was a Batgirl issue,
Right,
what, six,
right.
something of the sort. Anyway, the cover was a callback to Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, and now you had all of these people crying, foul for the fact that we have this woman who is empowering, and this image is a callback to what was at the time inside The Killing Joke, a vague sense of basically what sexual assault that was sort of implied in The Killing Joke itself. But the point is that the people that got outraged from all this more or less have no real inclination towards the story. They probably never read it. It's a lot of outrage bandwagoning, if you want to, for lack of better words.
I can see that. I can see that. But in the case of the Killing Joke thing, I mean, man, I mean, I do not want to go back to those comics. I mean, those were dark. I mean, that stuff was not
It was
fun.
a good story.
It's-
It was a dark story, but it was very well written.
I guess. I mean, looking back, I mean, I agree, well written, but I have to admit, like looking back on that stuff now, I just think like, man, like what was wrong with us? Because like that was like, that stuff was so grim. I mean, I really, man, I don't know. I can understand being kind of outraged. I guess I can't understand being outraged to give about the cover, but I can understand really wanting to resist going back to those kind of Alan Moore days because man, that stuff just. It was a downer. I mean, it was a serious downer. I mean,
Well, the defense outside of the actual artist, who was the artist? Was it Tony Nathaniel that actually drew the homage cover?
yeah, I forget. I mean, I don't really have an ethical problem with it or anything. I don't.
Right, and that's getting to my point. It's the fact that look, if you enjoy something, if you don't like something, that's fine. It's completely okay. You are definitely entitled to your opinion. You have that.
Did I lose you? Yeah, I think I lost you. All right, I'll cut this here. So
The
excellent.
Killing Joke.
I lost you for a second. Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Okay. I lost you for a second. So you're saying the Killing Joke. So if you like it, good with that? It's your thing.
Basically, okay. So the new Batgirl run is not supposed to be, dire. It's not supposed to be
Right,
this
right.
comic. It's supposed to be lighthearted, even though it's mostly young adult males that are buying it, as opposed to the teenage demographic that it, is trying to cater to. In any case, if you like something, that's fine. I don't particularly agree with the smarmy tweets and Facebook posts that I've seen of trying to ban the Killing Joke. When you have this echo chamber of moral, of just outrage, of wanting diversity, of not wanting this, of wanting that, it gets to a point where, well, where does that stress factor stop, and where does the genuine evolution or transition, as it were, of actual diversity in comics begin? At what point, at what time will we reach this point where change in comics or any other type of medium is brought forth in a more genuine way, and not so much in the, I guess, the internet outrage culture now? It all seems very, tiring. It's needless anger at this point. As much as I want change and diversity in comics and in video games and whatever other things, it would be a benefit if my particular generation Y, could apply that same passion towards real life issues.
Well, that's yeah. I can certainly see that. All right, I'm gonna cut this here and start a new one. So hold on a sec. All right, so thanks, like and subscribe. Hold on. Peace out.